I'm going to read tonight from my short chapbook. It's called The Way I Learned to Take It Like a Girl. I'll tell you a little bit about how this came to be. A year ago, last March, I submitted this little manuscript to a contest on a whim. I'm not expecting anything, of course, but I really liked the judge's work. And so I said, what the hell? And I sent it in, and then about 3.5 months later, I got an email that said, it won. Yeah. Yay. Which was delightful. Thank you. Thank you. But it was particular, and it's a very short book, but it was particularly meaningful because I consider it kind of a memorial to my mother, because she inspired most of the poems in the book and more, and because she passed away about a month after I found out it was going to be published. Wow. She had suffered with years of debilitating illness, something called progressive supranuclear palsy, after being misdiagnosed, and it was so. And another cool little thing, at her behest, I was able to share with her all the poems in this book. She was a great lover of poetry and a great supporter of mine. And I was really nervous about it, but she couldn't really speak, so she kept saying, indicating she wanted to read them. And so I let her, and it was lovely knowing that I had just made some nice little things for her. So anyway, I'll dive right in here. A little closer? Oh, that's nice. You like that? Okay. Is that good? Okay. I usually don't use mics, so this is kind of a treat. Okay. First poem is called Feeding My Mother. I arrive, and you, riled, raise your right arm, rattle your wrist like a favor, as last week's calla lilies languish in the trash. Funny, even when you could speak, there were daily lamentations. Chronic insomnia, the wait for pills. For weeks, you suspected a large bird, maybe a heron, was snatching koi from the courtyard pond. Today it's 5:10, and I know dinner's late, but look, I say. I've brought a bouquet of Gerbers for your room. Offering flowers is me asking forgiveness for my perpetual impatience, and from the chair that swallows you, you lean toward me as if I were light. How your helplessnesses make the vase of your throat so beautiful, your body never at rest, pale stalk in a susurrus of wind. I'm reminded of how you're slowly consuming yourself, and no matter what I do or eat, your illness coats my mouth like a sap. I watch the antagonistic movements of your lips as you seek the straw in an imagined root beer float. Do you want to tell me something you'll never say? Is it, I'm so hungry? Is it, why are you always raising your voice? I witness word after word crawl up out of the dark of you, teeter on your teeth to fall back down, wings still wet and folded. The tray arrives, and I place it between us. Lift the cover off the plate, reveal tilapia, sweets, corn, peas. Tuck the corner of a paper towel into the hollow of your neck. But sometimes I can't bear to touch what's left of you with my hands, so I focus on lifting the weighted spoon, its handle wide as your wrist. Your eyes brighten. Oh, how you amuse me, the way those prehensile lips curl around their whitened gums as you take in the flesh, baring teeth, perhaps in defense of the plate. And before you're done chewing, you look to me for the next bite. Soon even this pleasure will be stripped from you, the day the peristaltic muscles of your throat choose to stop their ringing. In the corner, this week's daisies are already starting to hang their failed heads. Soon, there'll be no more oily flakes of white fish to smear across your chin with my brutal thumb wrapped in napkin. No more of me pouring the last of the melted vanilla ice cream straight from the dish onto your tongue. So now is as good a time as any to tell you, How all of my life I've waited to love you like this. The next one is the title poem. The way I learned to take it like a girl begins in the kitchen with him, curling back a beer can pull tab. The tin clit wears a ring he fingers and drops into garbage. The crack hiss rips down the hall. My mother stops breathing. Hitting her is dread like a wave of nausea. Winter Sunday morning playing out like so. The dog laps from a bowl my soggy raisin bran, licks around the raisins she dislikes. The sponge cake in the oven rises up over the pan's fat lip, then exhales down to a reasonable size, as mother quietly hauls in logs for the wood stove despite her bad back. I carry my tender love by a leg as she attempts to recover from wounds regularly inflicted by blue ball point pens. And as day deepens into afternoon, his movie ended, six-pack finished, my father peers out of the dark bar of his mind, spies his work week gathering like a shadow between the pines. Snap. An icicle drops from the frozen gutter, impaling the snow below, the snow receiving the full length of it without a sound. The next piece was inspired by a short passage from one of my favorite contemporary novels called The Outlander. Not the Diana Gabaldon Outlander with the sexy Scottish guy running around. No, not that book. It's called The Outlander by Canadian poet Jill Adamson. And it's full of such beautiful prose, you can tell that a poet must have written it. So my poem begins with a quote from her book. It's called Storm. Life itself is injury, the way bread is made of flour, the poet wrote. Words flurry through my mind. I watch my mother sleep open-mouthed. Oh, pain of living bone on bone. She stirs. The room swoons. Outside, a great wind seizes the trees by the hair. The loquat gives up its red bodies. I know blood, even if I can't see it. I know finches hunker in caches. They fold and tuck and fold. They can't. Until they can't, there's only so much space a body can lose. My mother starched the blue occasional napkins, folded each corner to corner, carried the stack across open palms to the drawer, as if each one held a dying bird still singing. Whenever my father blew the door down, took the night by the throat and shook, it snowed. We froze and fell silently to pieces. Moonlight beamed white through the windows, discovered my mother in her apron, dusted with flour, like snow, mother, a white deer in the dark, the house still smelling of bread. Well, I'm from the East, specifically from Massachusetts, where I grew up, and New Hampshire. I spent a lot of time there because my dad taught skiing in the winter on the weekends there. So a lot of my poems have New England as their backdrop, like this next one. I'm going to skip that. Okay. Girl in New Hampshire on fire. In those days, when I was both dark and apparent, eyes rimmed with coal, some species of adolescent fish, heart beating, lungs swelling and falling through pellucid skin, my desire so heavy I dragged it everywhere, an almost visible suitcase. I let the scarf of my hair whip behind me. I believed anything was possible. Once, we drove through the afternoon drizzle, singing with the radio, your hand playing my knee, to where the abandoned cabin still stood in the woods, rocked by the graveyard wind. You scraped out the fireplace with a rotting plank, opened the flue. I gathered sticks from the dark corners, leaves wide as hands, paper wrappers, that with my lighter we set to smoking until they caught fire and the black stone hole bloomed with light. We lit cigarettes, sat with our six-pack, as you told me about the blaze that had claimed both brothers, how you'd tried to rouse them from their beds, how finally you'd given up and run, tumbled after the dog, down the stairs, out to the safety of the lawn, their two small faces at the upstairs window, the glass too hot to touch. And then we stripped, heaping our damp clothes into two lonely islands, and I, shivering, got down on all fours on the floor, begged you to fill every hollow in me so no room would be left. You said you would not do what I asked you to do because it wasn't love and you loved me. But I wept. Pine needles sap stuck to my knees, my whole body throbbing as you dressed in silence, then doused our fire with beer and walked outside into the rain. Why couldn't you, boy who survived, forgive my need to feel everything and nothing at once? You, who understood what it was to be brought to the knees. You, who knew burning. Thank you. The last poem in the book is aptly titled Finality Dream. I steal my dying mother from her bed. She wants to go to the beach, so I strap all 94 pounds of her to my spine with bungee cords and carry her as a backpack, her broken back like an accident arching over my own, her bones dangling from her nightie. We walk the shoulders of the 110 to the 10, past screaming cars, Mack trucks, tour buses like opportunities that pass so fast we don't know we've missed them. We breathe invisible magnetite nanoparticles, and my mother's curled fingers tally each lone shoe. She is thinking of lost children, of the inside of the closet where she was once locked, a closet being where most shoes live in pairs, children alone. I step over black adders of tire coiled cautionary tape. I fear my face will always tilt downward towards roads. We exit an off-ramp and continue on, passing under oak trees, gibbeting their shadows, the ocean's brininess invading the breeze. When we arrive at the beach, I get down on all fours like a crab, and Mother becomes the carapace. Her legs fall to each side, drag through the sand. I can't tell if she's moaning with pleasure or if her feet are burning. Perhaps it's both. Coming towards us is a broad, handsome man, walking a toy poodle that suddenly stops to lick at a half-melted rainbow-colored popsicle, the man's t-shirt boasting, "Pain is only weakness, leaving the body." Mother is mouthing something to the clouds as I keep crawling to the sea. Do I have a titch more time? A little bit? Okay. Excellent. I have a couple newer things I'd love to share with you. This next one just appeared last month in a really nifty online journal called SWIM, S-W-I-M, S-W-W-I-M. They're out of Miami. They're online, and it's run by women, and they feature work only by women, and there is some phenomenal work in this journal. I recommend it. SWIM. Anyway, the poem is called Ode to Iron. Call me stellar demise. My hemoglobin pulses with the last exhalations of stars. I have cast myself into a cup, a scaffold, a fence, a pipe, a cup. That which is foundational marks the edge of a loving space or fills to overflowing. That which can be used as weapon, but more often the thing that spills over. Well-seasoned skillet, molasses, rust. Some days I'm so hard, heavy, others so magnetic I can't move. I have carried water no one would want to drink, water not fit for a child to bathe in. Cells of the fetus I aborted at age 21, bored through the blood-brain barrier, and his tiny double helixes corkscrewed my mind. He still courses through me. I imagine his eyes the color of black ore, like his father's. Sometimes I dream him into a strong body, a body outside of myself, a body I can touch, and I become a spigot. All I do is weep. Another star died and found its way here. To wrap up, a sort of a love poem, which is always a good way to end, I think. Mattress. More than the boxes of outgrown toys I dropped at Goodwill, plastic cash register missing coins, wooden blocks, pony plushie won at a fair. More than the t-shirts that wore the outlines of stains, soft maps I traveled with the tip of my finger before tearing into rags. More than the white lacquered table we left by the bin as old as our marriage, legs folded like a deer's under its body of pressed wood. I will miss the exhausted mattress relinquished after 7 years, that for so long held us as we'd never been held before. Every vertebra buoyed, the hollows behind our elbows lifted. As we rose, the great indentations of our bodies disappearing as if our heavinesses were instantly reparable. Oh, Pillsbury doughboy of beds that grew and grew by what it fed on, sweat, dried skin, cum, particulates of iron from the neighbor's car exhaust, bits of dried leaves and seed pods, feathers blown in from the house finch nest tucked up under the eave. Mattress from which I sprang to comfort our child, our sick child, and returned, pale daughter in my arms, covers thrown back if she was feverish, or pulled up around our heads if, come morning, her wrung-out body needed stilling into sleep. Mattress on which you received the call your mother, after a second stroke, had slipped from this world and you'd not been there. Mother whose love of the organ, God, her children, brought her no joy. Where 1 year later to the day, you mourned your father's passing. He who died upright in his favorite chair, a smile on his face, so sure he was going to meet her. Where I lay awake after learning of my own mother's crippling illness. How from her bed, losing her ability to swallow, she begged me to hasten the end for her. How I, from mine, time and again, wished for her death, then wept that I had wished it. And how, depending on the day, the mattress, sagging in its middle, became a boat I could not climb out of, or a marker on the sea, raft I willingly swam to. that ferried me out of the darkness of my imagination into morning and all of its prosaic demands. Mattress, where so often we read late into the night, me clutching a volume of poetry, you with a novel. Where we made love on your side, nearest the window, to feel what little breeze might be stirring the palms. Where I sat astride you, dripping sweat, believing that if I hadn't come or you hadn't, it was a kind of failure. As I looked out at a dragon fruit blossom, flowering for one night only before it collapsed. White star, soft body, open as wide as its petals could stretch. Wider. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That was a pleasure. Thank you.